Hi, I'm Kyla.
And I'm Nick. Welcome to Route Captain Training. Nailed it.
So today we're going to talk about your role as a route leader or route captain and what that entails. We'll talk a little bit about the role, so all of the different people on your team, who the volunteers are on that, what you'll be doing the week before the event, including how to prepare for signing the route and looking at the route review and communicating with your volunteers, as well as what will happen on walk day. So everything from the volunteer training to the route and volunteer management and what to do in emergencies, as well as how to sign the routes. So for you as the route lead, you are the first in and last out on the routes. It's really important for you to know that. There's not a lot of work for you to do before the event itself. We've got a few things on event week, but on event day, you are going to be the first one out there signing the routes and the last one out taking down those signs. You will report to the event director, and so make sure you have their cell phone number and they have yours so that you can communicate regularly the week before the event, but especially on event day. You may help to plan those routes and update those routes, but your event director also may have done that. So your responsibility is to know those routes well. You'll be overseeing all of the rest stop management, the rest stop setup, the sign setup, the sign tear down, all participant activity outside, and all of those outside volunteers. Let's talk about your setup crew. So your setup crew is a group of 5 to 8 people who you've personally recruited, so friends of yours that you've asked to come early and to help you set up those signs. You may be also getting them to help you stake the signs beforehand, but Nick will be sharing with us shortly exactly how to sign the routes, but you're going to need a team of people to help you with that process. Their responsibility is to get those signs up and then at the end of the event to take those signs back down again, as well as to set up those rest stops, to make sure that the food and drinks are delivered to those rest stops, and then again to collect and tear down and clean up those rest stops after the event. It's a great job for them to be able to transition to sweep vehicle drivers and sweep vehicle helpers after they've done this, and then afterwards they can stay on later and help take down those signs. When we talk about the sweep vehicle drivers, we can divide this up into 2 sections. There's the driver and the helper. The sweep vehicle driver will only be responsible for driving the routes. We'll give some vehicle flags that we'll send in your event kits. For first year locations, those will be new. For returning year locations, you should have those from previous years. And we've sent 2 per vehicle so that you can have those so that participants can easily identify the vehicles and know that they can flag those down if needed. The passenger can help give directions on that, have the map with them, but the passenger will be available for keeping an eye on the walkers, keeping an eye to see if anybody's waving down the sweep vehicle. They will be collecting phone calls from you who might be communicating with them. It'd be great actually if they can also turn on Find My Friends app. You can actually track them and know where they are during the event itself and know where they are on the route. And that way you can look at your phone and easily ascertain which sweep vehicle is closest if somebody needs a participant pickup, but you'll be tracking along with them closely during that time. So we need to be really clear at this point that the sweep vehicle driver may not answer the phone at any time and may not even use a Bluetooth service to have the phone call come in through the car. We only want the sweep vehicle helper to take the phone call. So you as a route lead during the event itself will be a passenger in one of the sweep vehicles. Have somebody that you trust driving, but you will be a passenger so that you can take those phone calls as needed. The sweep vehicle helper will be riding along with that sweep vehicle driver. They'll be communicate with the team, providing support and helping as well with the route setup and tear down. They can also provide encouragement along the way, and so that sweep vehicle helper can roll down the window, shout out encouraging things as necessary along the way. But really, they're going to be keeping their eye out for people who are flagging down and need extra support along the way. You also might receive calls to go to a rest stop in order to pick up a participant as well. All right, the next role of people that you are in charge of managing are the rest stop attendants. And these are the people out at the rest stops who are responsible for giving the participants a snack. Mm-hmm. So you will be setting it up with your setup crew, including all of the food that's available and all the drinks that are available there. But they will be manning that during the event itself. So giving out the snacks and the hot chocolate, They'll be also keeping their eye on fatigued participants. So anyone who might be too tired to keep going, might be injured in some way. Sometimes people get a bit overambitious about the distance that they can go on event day, and so at that point the rest stop attendant can call you as the route lead, and you can call for a sweep vehicle pickup to bring that person back to that start-finish location. The rest stop attendants can also cheer on the participants along the way. Often participants will want to know how far they've come and how far they have to go. And so for rest stop attendants to know that information, that's really helpful. And just to cheer and encourage them that they've made it so far in the event. You can also have a first aid kit available there at the rest stop just for small scrapes, for anybody who has a small cut that can just be covered by a Band-Aid. It's good to have a few bandages there or some polysporin cream or something that can help wash very small wounds, something that's not very serious. The next role is the route marshals, and the route marshals are the people who are out on the course and often standing at key intersections. But they're really basically there to encourage and direct participants. They're in groups of 2, sometimes 3 if you have an odd number, and you will give them a map with the instructions and the intersection that you'll have them at that time. They are to hold a sign and to point people in the right direction. You'll often have route marshals at intersections that are a little bit more complicated, maybe where you have some participants going straight and some participants turning right or left, so that they can provide clarity there, or at an intersection that's particularly busy so that you can have those route marshals hold people back at crossing lights or at a stop sign. They may not, under any circumstances, direct traffic. Sometimes in group mentality, walkers will want to cross over a red light, and those route marshals are there for safety to keep them back from doing that. So they will be participating right from the training until the route closes down. Make sure also that they're dressed appropriately for the weather. It can be quite a long shift for these particular volunteers. The best ones to recruit that we have found are young adult couples who love spending time alone together and love talking and don't mind that they're outside regardless of the weather. And so, and we ask that they carry charged phones so that you can reach them if you need to, or they can reach you if they have a participant again who is either injured or that they feel needs to be pulled off the route, in which case you can call for a sweep vehicle driver to come pick them up along the way. On the week before the event, you have a number of tasks that you need to do. One is to review the routes again. Your route maps are available on the location page, and you can just scroll down and print those off. We would ask that you either ride, walk, drive those routes, somehow navigate around those routes the week before the event so that you know that no construction has started that was unexpected, that you know that there's no bridges that have closed down, and that the routes are fully available still. Surprises can happen, and we will help navigate with you through that. If that happens, reach out to us. We can help change those routes and communicate to your participants along the way. You'll be confirming your rest stops, so calling those organizations to make sure that you know how to get in, that somebody's got a key or will be there to meet you, what time you'll be arriving to set up those rest stops, and what time you're expecting to be headed out after the event is over. You'll also be finalizing your volunteer assignments. So if you don't have access to Waves, your event director does. We encourage you to get together so that they can sign in. You'll make sure that all of the volunteers are assigned and communicated with so that you can email them right through the Waves system and communicate to them that way by role. So you can tell them what time to come, to check in at the welcome desk when they get there. And you can also begin to do some last-minute recruiting for any positions that you don't have quite enough volunteers for. You will also appreciate that volunteer team. They're people, the hardy ones are the ones that sign up to participate and volunteer outside on event day. And you're going to be reviewing and confirming your signage needs. So laying them all out, figuring out exactly which ones, where they will go so that you're ready to go on event day. All right, so Nick's going to talk about route signage.
We're going to talk about signage. Signage is the bread and butter of the route captain responsibility, especially leading up to the event itself. It's really the only pre-event activity that you're going to do. First off, we'll talk about timing with regards to signage, which is to say, when should you do it and how long is it going to take? So, as far as the when question is concerned, in all but a few situations, we say get up bright and early the day of the event to get all your signs set up. We want the signs to be kept safe, and the longer they're out publicly, the higher chance there is for them to be damaged or someone to turn one of your arrow signs in the wrong direction. That's happened before, and that's really upsetting. And so the closer you can get it within responsibility to actual event time, the better. As far as how long it takes, this will vary depending on the distance of the routes that you have in play. It will depend on how many people you have. It will depend on how many times you've done it before. Book lots of time to get it done so that you can do it well and be comfortable with the result. After timing, we want to talk about equipment. Number one is the signs themselves. We'll have sent those out to you, or they'll be left over if you've done it previous years. You want to know exactly how many and how they're going to be positioned along your route. You should be already familiar with it, know where all the major intersections are. You want to know exactly what that order is. And one of the great things you can actually do is have them arranged in order of how they're going to be set up as you move down the route and set those signs up as you go. So you know you're going to need 2 arrows here, you're going to need a caution sign there, etc., etc. Signs are the number one equipment. Number 2, tools to actually do the job. You want to have a drill almost for sure. Don't bring a screwdriver instead of a drill. You'll not thank yourself later. You'll need screws if you're going to be screwing them into stakes, or sledgehammer if you're going to use stakes. That's crucial. Potentially washers to maintain the condition of your signs, and in some situations zip ties can be used in lieu of those screws. You'll also need, in most situations, either stakes, wooden or metal sort of pegs that are used to stick the signs into the ground. You'll definitely need a truck or a van to get this done. You've got these big square Coroplast signs. You want to have lots of space so that you don't have to go back and get another box of signs in the middle of the process. You want that momentum, so get a big vehicle or a friend who has a big vehicle to help you get that done. Number 3, most important equipment aside from signs are the people themselves that will help you do this. Woe to the naive route captain who tries to do it by themselves. Then the 5 hours turn into 24 hours, and that's a horrific experience. 8 people would be great. Then you can divvy up into sort of 2 mini teams and get it done really, really quickly. If you can only manage 4 or 5, that's fine as well. You'll work as a single unit then and get into your rhythm to get all the work done. So you want to make sure you've got your signs, make sure you have your tools, make sure you have your people to get all of this done well. Now, there's really 4 primary functions that signs fall into as far as categories and also for their purposes. Number 1 is pretty obvious. It's for direction. There's mostly arrow signs in the signs you've received. They're going to direct participants in the way they need to go. That's fairly straightforward. Number 2, you want caution. Caution for participants, so they know where they should be, where they shouldn't be, but also for traffic, pedestrian and vehicular, so that they know that there's an event happening, so that they have an explanation in their mind for why there's hordes of people where there normally aren't, and they can adjust their patterns accordingly. Number 3 is for connection. It creates a sense of camaraderie to see the signs as you move through, especially on some of the longer routes, as you're sort of pushing along, to sort of see the branding, to see the encouraging signs and the mottos and the slogans, just that there is a unity in signage, in all being together in this same endeavor. And lastly, it's just encouragement. As people push through, they're going on long distances, and especially as they get near the end, all they want to see is the sign that says, just a little bit farther, you're almost home. And so we use signs for that as well. Rules of thumb when you're actually doing the signing. Number 1 is this. We've provided lots for you. Use them all. Undersigning is a problem. Oversigning almost never happens. Use every single one that we have, and you'll be pretty happy with the way things are rolling out. Number 2, they're made of Coroplast. They're pretty durable. You'll notice that when you try to lift them all at once. But we still want to take care of them. They should be able to last for a good 3 to 5 years if they're treated well. One big thing is if you're bringing out stakes and you're going to use a sledgehammer or something to hammer those in, there's sometimes a temptation to attach them to those stakes in advance and then try to sledgehammer them down. Unless you're a veteran with a sledgehammer, you're probably going to end up hitting the signs themselves, which will considerably shorten their lifespan. And so you just want to take care of them. tied to that is just the encouragement to get them inside as soon as you can after the event is done. We ask that this is done the evening of, even though you're exhausted, even though you're tired, even though you're embarrassed to go back to your volunteers one more time to bring them out with you. You gotta do it. Both from the perspective of it looks pretty sad if you've got signage out for an event that happened, 6 months previous, but also for, again, caring for those signs and making sure they've been brought in, because they will be, in all likelihood, either defaced or stolen if they're left out for too long. We encourage that teardown to happen right after the event, the same day. For the actual process itself, number one thing we say as far as how you're going to spread the signs out over the course of your routes, we usually use eyesight as a good judge of it. You want to have, it usually works out to about 500 meters, but it depends on curves. You should be able to see the one that's behind you just barely on the edge of your vision, and then the next one moving ahead should be just on the edge of your vision, so that participants can constantly feel that encouragement to say, okay, I know what the next step looks like. It might be 500 meters, it might be 100 meters, depending on the nature of the routes you're using. But that's sort of a good rule of thumb, that they stay within your vision. We have one concern that comes up pretty consistently, because as we talk about this, talk about signage, talk about what you're going to do, you'll notice that you've only got the signs themselves, and there's no way to affix them, there's no drill, there's no screws, there's no stakes or whatever it is that you would actually do with those. Each event location has their own sort of little way of doing this. There's lots of different methods. We have some locations that use metal stakes and spikes. We have some that put them up onto hydro poles. We have some that use wooden stakes. There's no one-size-fits-all solution, and so we haven't pretended that there is. What we do is we encourage you to make the decision that fits best for your location. If you're a returning location, in all likelihood this has been done in the past, and so you don't have to go out and hopefully buy all new stakes or metal pegs or whatever that is. If it's your first time, you might have to poke around a little bit, do your review of your route, see what you've got at your disposal, and see what's allowed by city bylaws and parks and things like that before you commit to this. The hydro poles, as long as you've got permission and know that that's not going to be looked upon as its own kind of vandalism.
We also have a couple of locations that have permit issues where they are not allowed to stake at all.
Correct.
So not allowed to use them, not allowed to post them, not allowed to. And if that happens, that's where you're going to make sure that signs are in the hands of every single one of your route marshals, and you're just going to need a few extra volunteers to put a person holding a sign exactly where you'd have all of those signs.
Now, we're going to walk through sort of a diagram of how you'd want to sign a sample intersection, because this is really, straight stretches are fairly straightforward, obviously, but intersections require a bit of finessing. So you've got sort of your standard T intersection, and say you've got a longer route going straight, but the shorter one is going to turn off to the right. What you want to do is this. First off, well in advance, say 250 or more meters before that intersection arrives, get a good strong sign with your arrows saying, okay, if you're going this distance, it's straight, this distance, it's right. So they can see that and get prepared. As you get up close, you'll either have a volunteer who knows and can direct them, or another set of signs that say the exact same thing. You'll say, won't they remember? They might remember, they might not remember. So just have that again there right at the beginning. The final step is one that really makes the difference between sort of a B grade sign job and an A+. And this is right after participants go through an intersection, there's this moment of absolute self-doubt where they don't remember anything that they've just seen, what route they're on, and why they're there. And what you need to do to help them with that is put one more sign with one more arrow that says, keep going, you've made the right choice. And that way they can either feel comfort and say, okay, good, I've made the right decision, that's where I want to go, or they can course correct and say, okay, nope, I need to be in the other way, and they can backpedal and make that adjustment. So that's what you want to look at, basically 3 tiers of direction at an intersection, especially one of the busier ones on your route. That's what you're going to want to do.
So you will be, after the signs are up and posted and you've got your setup crew there, you will be meeting and training with your volunteers. Now your volunteers include the rest stop attendants, the route marshals, the sweep vehicle drivers and passengers. You'll gather all of your volunteers together in one area, and you'll set them aside by group so that you've got your rest stop attendants in one grouping together, your sweep vehicle drivers in another grouping together, and in a third grouping you've got your route marshals. But they're all there in front of you so that they can overhear the training for each one. You'll hand out safety vests for all of the people who are route marshals. The other ones don't necessarily need safety vests, but route marshals definitely do need the safety vests that we've sent to you. And together as a group, you'll give a small, maybe 1 to 2 minute inspirational speech. And this is where you really tie in the whys about what they are there with thanking them for volunteering their time. So this is where you say, thank you for coming today to the event. We've raised this much money for the charity. Name it. Say we're expecting this many participants and this many volunteers today. And we thank you for coming to volunteer, for giving of your time, and for being a part of something bigger, and for helping to raise this much money for a charity that really needs it. So, of course, you'll be specific where you are. Look up those numbers just before you give your speech so that you can have accurate numbers, because people will be signing up and registering right up onto the day of the event, and you'll have accurate numbers then. And just give them a small, inspiring speech to help them out to be able to tie that together. Then we're going to have you train each of the sections individually. So say to the rest stop attendants, thank you for coming today. Your role is to encourage participants along the way, to give them something to eat. We've already set up the rest stops for you. There's food and drinks there. Here's a map. You and you are at this rest stop. You and you are at this one. If you've got another one, you and you are at this one. Divide them up. You'll also find you have some surprise people showing up and some people who said they were going to show up who didn't. So you'll need to be flexible on the day of to reassign some of those positions. Just make sure you've got at least 2 volunteers per rest stop, and in busier rest stops, if you could have more than that, that would be great. And you are going to say your role is to encourage participants to pull any aside that you think are no longer able to continue on the route for whatever reason, and have a first aid kit there in case anybody needs a Band-Aid or anything. And then also make sure that that phone number is on the map for them so that they can contact you if they begin to run low on supplies, or if they've got an issue with the participant and they need some extra support. Then you'll turn to your sweep vehicle drivers. If they're your setup crew, you might have a chance to do this earlier, but if they're fresh people, then you can say to them, we need to get you in groups of 2. One person will be the driver, one person will be the passenger. The passenger is the person who is responsible for keeping their eye out for participants along the way and for communicating by cell phone with the route leader if there's any emergency pickups that are needed, or if the rest stop locations have run out of food and you need to deliver more. They can carry extra food in the truck or van along with them as they go on the routes. We will send vehicle flags so that the vehicles are easily identifiable, and that person will be keeping their eye out for any participants who wave them down along the way. The driver is solely responsible for driving. We do not want them ever to use a cell phone. We don't even want them to use a Bluetooth cell phone, and so being able to take calls, we want them purely focused on driving those routes and making sure that our participants are safe by not running any of them over, or by just being really extra vigilant in safety so that you're purely focused on the road itself. Sometimes it really helps to encourage them too, so if it's not frowned upon in your community, giving a couple of honks every time you pass by, or getting that passenger and the sweep vehicle driver to roll down the window and shout out some encouragement along the way is quite a helpful way to do that. And then you'll tell them that they will be communicated to once the last of the participants is in and back, and that way that you can tell them their shift is done and come on back for a meal afterwards. And then they'll turn to the route marshals. If you're looking for recruiting route marshals, it's often the last job that comes in, and so you'll see some signing up the week before the event, and we believe that's because people are likely watching the weather to see whether it's going to be nice to be standing outside. You're going to make sure that they are in groups of 2. If you've got an odd group, you can get one of them into a group of 3. Give them a sign to be holding while they're out there. Make sure they have their safety vests. And again, you'll give them a map and tell them what intersection to go into. and you can have that mapped in order of priority. So if you have a few no-shows, you can make sure that your priority locations are manned first. And we recommend doing that by identifying them by A, B, and C. So A is priority intersections, B is slightly less priority, and C is ones that are an extra bonus if you've got them. Tell the people where to go, make sure you collect cell phone numbers from them and that they have yours. So again, they can communicate if they can identify a participant who maybe needs to get picked up along the way, or who isn't doing well. And they can also identify the last walkers passed by and communicate that to you along the way as well. It's great if people are willing. We understand that there are privacy issues involved, but if people are willing to turn on the Find My Friends app, again, this is a great way to be able to identify where your staff and volunteers are on that day, so that you can communicate clearly with your other sweet vehicle drivers or rest stop attendants or route marshals along the way. So route marshals are responsible for giving direction, but also cheering on participants along the way. So they'll hold signs, they'll cheer, they'll send them off in the direction that they're supposed to go. So be sure when you're training your route marshals that you can say, at this intersection, this distance will be going straight, this distance will be turning right. So be sure to communicate that with every participant as they come along. Then you'll send them on the way with their maps and make sure again that they have your cell phone number so that they can text you and say, do not leave until you've heard from me that your shift is over, and we will communicate to you when that last participant has gone through. So you've trained all your volunteers and sent them on the way, and then your role will be to read off the send-off instructions to participants after the opening ceremonies. So opening ceremonies are done. The event director who has led those opening ceremonies can shift that focus to you, and you can either do that right out on the sidewalks or right out at the door. If you've got a lot of people and they can't hear you, gather them in groups of hearable numbers, so maybe 20 to 50 people. Now, the send-off instructions are available in waves. We've spelled them out very, very clearly, and really, as a basic, they're an encouragement but a reminder of safety and to follow the laws of the land, which are stopping at stop signs and stopping at red lights and
obeying police officers.
Yes, that type of thing, and following instructions for signs. They're really obvious, but we do encourage you to read those out just after opening ceremonies is done and just as the participants are headed out on their way. If you have a lot of participants, you may need to do this several times. Collect groups of 50 or as many as can hear in the area. Shout them out, encourage them, send them on the way. Gather the next group in and do the same thing again so that each and every person knows what the send-off instructions are, and we know that they've been reminded of the safety instructions along the way. As they're sent out, you will be getting into the car as a passenger with a trusty sweet vehicle driver. We cannot stress this enough. You need to be a passenger in the sweet vehicle on event day, constantly going around the route so that you can be on your cell phone. You'll be shocked at how much you're actually on the phone on the day of. Nick, you've had experience being a route captain. And
yeah, I think I hit 80 calls over the course of about 3.5 hours last time I did it, yeah. So
have a phone charger in there too, but you cannot be driving the car at the same time. You'll be a passenger and you will be on the phone a lot. So rest stops will run out of food, or participants will need to pick up, or the event director will be asking how many people are left on the route, and it's your job to make sure everybody's in and back and safe on that route on event day. You will be communicating with the event director once that last participant is through, and you can do what's called a progressive shutdown. So begin to take down the signs as that last participant is going along the routes, collecting those, bringing them into the van, wiping them down with a chamois or a microfiber cloth so that they stay clean and can be used for another year. So just be gentle with those so that you'll be putting them away. Your role is to take down all of the signs and the rest stops before the day is done. Do not save it for the next day. We've found a lot of vandalism and it gets really easy. You'll be exhausted the next day, so it's really easy to put that off, but please don't do that. Have everything taken down while you still have your setup crew there, while you still have volunteers there. Bring everything back and wiped down so that you can put those away, and then you can go back to the start-finish location for your celebration meal at the end of that. All right, we'll transition now to talk a little bit about emergencies. So again, in the guide, in waves, Under route management, we have the emergency protocols. Now, also in Waves, we've got a great search feature, and so you just type in emergency and come up with it. It's fabulous. And so it will walk you through everything and what to do in case of emergency. So we'd ask that you print that off and have that available to you so that you know exactly what to do. So in case of emergency, you will stay calm, be prepared to lead, because often people get anxious during an emergency and they'll look to you as a leader. So unless it's just a simple scrape that can use a Band-Aid, we're going to ask that you default to 911. So if there's been any head injury, if anybody's twisted their ankle in any way, and anything other than a basic scrape, we do ask that you call 911. While you're waiting for the ambulance to come, you can provide basic first aid, comfort the participant, maybe use your jacket to cover them up, keep them warm. Take notes. We have provided you with a incident report that we ask that you take a picture of and send in that same day, and that you include in the bundles that come back, the registration bundles, so that we could have a hard copy of that. You can take notes if you have it on your phone in your notes app, if you don't have one of those sheets with you, but we ask that you fill that out as shortly as possible after that person gets picked up. So make sure you collect their name, the information from anybody who was a witness to that, the names of those people, and complete that incident report with all of the details, and either send that to me by text right away, let me know that's happened, or take a picture of that and send that to me by email, and that's another way I can get that quickly. Make sure you have my phone number in your phone the week before the event as well, so that you can reach out to me within the hour if an emergency has happened, so that we can follow up with the injured party as well. The other situation that may arise is extreme weather. And by extreme weather, we mean anything that is freezing rain, thunder, lightning are the biggest ones. Sometimes it can be very, very cold conditions, so strong wind chills. Sometimes it can be really, really high winds. So we're going to ask that you have the Weather Network app on, and if there's an extreme weather situation, that you watch that closely. So I'll walk you through a few examples, but we do have it all in Waves as well, and ask that you go in and have that section printed off. Again, you can just do a search for it about weather and it will come up. We will also keep our eye out for bad weather as it's heading towards the event day, and we will communicate with you if we see any, but sometimes you might be surprised and a change in weather can happen rather rapidly. So we'd ask that you keep an eye on that weather, and if you do have emergency weather, communicate with me and I will help walk you through the different types of things that we can do. But I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a thunder lightning warning. You will not send out participants in a thunder lightning warning. You will hold back participants until that risk has passed, until 15 minutes after that risk has passed, up until it's time for a meal, at which point, so if you've waited an hour and a half and your food team is serving the meal, the post-event meal, we would just say to stand up, to make an announcement, to thank everyone for coming, to remind them that it really is all about the fundraising, to thank them for being a part of the event, to come, to celebrate, to have the meal, and then to participate in their own way on their own time at another time. And so as long as you're gathering together and having that meal together, then that's great. Their donors will be understanding and would not want them to risk their lives in a storm. So that's a way you could handle that. In extreme cold or extreme heat, you can reduce the routes to shorter distances. And again, you would call me and I will help you walk through that. In, let's say, freezing rain or really high snow accumulation, you may have a situation where participants aren't even able to get to the event in order to go through the registration process or to have the meal. And as you see that coming, if you're finding other things are getting canceled in the community, again, you're going to reach out to me. I will help walk you through that, and we can communicate from our end to all of your participants. And if that happens, then we can make a decision together to either have a separate time during the week where people bring in their cash and money and go through the registration process, or if you can, to delay the event by up to a week at the latest, and then just redo it the following weekend. So we will walk through with you on how to do that, because it also, there's a lot of implications on that in terms of start-finish location and if that's possible. And so I will walk with you through that decision and how to communicate that decision. All right. So in summary, you're going to be building a strong relationship with your event director. Make sure you have each other's cell phones, you know each other well, so that you can communicate regularly on event day, so that any question that comes up. You'll be communicating lots through that. You'll know your routes well, and you'll drive, ride, walk, or somehow navigate through those routes the week before the event so that you know that no emergency construction has happened. You'll be recruiting your setup team personally and encouraging and motivating and thanking them to help get all of those signs up, and at the end of the event, all of those signs taken down and wiped off and cleaned up so that you can put those away safely for a following year. That you understand emergency protocols and weather protocols, that you've got those printed off, that you've read through those and understand those thoroughly, and that you're the first in and last out on event day.
And that's it. Thanks so much. We're really, really honored to be working with all of you as route captains. It is a big part of the event. Now, there is a quiz that follows this out. It's just about 5 minutes long, but we just ask you to take that just quickly and follow up if there's any additional questions. Once more, thank you so much for spending time on this.
Great. Thanks for joining us.